Good evening, folks, and welcome back to another episode of NASCAR Backmarker Battles. I am your host, Colby Evans, aka Startin' Parker on Twitter, and boy, do we have a fun show for you guys today. We have the Charlotte Motor Speedway review and the preview show for two different races over the weekend, the Xfinity race at Portland and the Truck Series and Cup Series races at Gateway. We're going to go through my little intro I go through at the beginning of every podcast, and we will jump right into the racing action. So you guys know the drill. Follow me on social media at Startin' Parker on Twitter for all low-budget team news and ARCA news and all that other fun crap you guys know I post. Like and subscribe to the channel. We just hit 1,160 subs. Thank you guys enough for your continued support. You guys are the best. Check out racingexperts.com for all NASCAR media-related content. And yes, going back to the YouTube thing, turn on that bell for all notifications so you guys never miss when we go live for a podcast. So let's jump right into it, shall we? Charlotte Motor Speedway, one of my favorite tracks on the circuit. As much as I love short tracks, and I think we can all agree we love our short tracks, you got to love the high-speed tracks. And, the cookie cutters that NASCAR really broke into, I really found myself enjoying Charlotte. From the tire wear to the multiple grooves, very rarely does Charlotte put on a bad race. For all the crap that the Gen 6 era got sometimes, Charlotte was always usually a good race. I've rarely said, and I think a lot of fans will agree, we've rarely said that Charlotte puts on bad races. In all three divisions, Charlotte is a good and fun track. And it was no different this weekend. I felt like all three races overall delivered in terms of entertainment, good hard racing, and we had three good winners, in my personal opinion. Congratulations to all three. And, of course, some great backmarker runs and some not so good backmarker runs. And yep, we're going to go through them right here, and a lot of news to share as well going into next weekend's races because there's a lot of shakeups going on. But we will start off with the Truck Series race from Charlotte. Now, one thing that we've been kind of noticing this season is a lack of full-time teams in the Truck Series. Now, this does not mean we're getting short fields. We're not. But it is noticeable how we are needing some other trucks to show up to fill out these fields. Once again, like Kansas, the 90 of Justin Carroll was not originally planned to show up to this race. And he just randomly appeared on the entry list. Not sure if the deal with the 34 truck was planned, but he has shown up as well. The number 1 truck wasn't even supposed to go full-time this year, but it's been at almost all the races. 22 showed up, although that was an AM Racing entry this week, not Rayom. But we still had a full field nonetheless. And it is interesting, you think, this home race, we should get DNQs galore. Interesting to note that last year's race only had 35. This year's race at least had 36. So at least we had a full field. Only a couple of real oddball entries in this field, like we said. We had Justin Carroll. Armani Williams was back in the 46. Matt Mills was back in the 20. Tyler Hill was in the 56 again. Jack Wood was back in the 51 after a little bit of an AdSense. And Ryan Vargas was back in the 30 as well. But otherwise, the same guys we know in the Truck Series. And the race was really no different. For some back markers, unfortunately, Keith McGee just hasn't really had a lot of luck this year. Whether it's been doing some starting parks in the 34. This race was not a starting park for him. The 34 was planning to go the distance. They had full sponsorship on the car. The truck looked great, by the way. Rayom might not have the fastest trucks, but Josh Rayom definitely knows how to make a truck look nice. And I love matte wraps. I know some people like a nice glossy car, but one thing I really love about Josh Rayom's team, matte finish wraps. It's not glossy, it's matte. I don't know why, but whenever I design my race cars on racing games, I use matte finishes. I like matte finish more than glossy. I don't know what you guys feel about that, but that's one thing I love about Josh Rayom's trucks. They're matte finish. I like that. I like that nice touch. So he fell out of the race early. They thought the truck had initially blown up, but it just fuel pump issues. Sucks for Keith because we know he kind of moved back to or kind of wants to move back to Alaska. So that sucks for him. Other than that, Armani Williams, he had a tough day. I mean, G2G really has had just some bad luck that overall I don't really blame on the team. Back at Wilkesboro, I mean, an oil line comes off and, while, yeah, you can blame the team for that, at the same time, I don't, because at the end of the day, that can happen to any organization. An oil line can fall off for any organization. And unfortunately, this week, it's like everything just kept getting worse for poor Armani. They had a tire failure a couple laps into the race. Wasn't his fault. Poor kid speeds down pit road. He's apologizing all over the radio. He feels bad. He finally, basically his race finally starts on like lap 10, and he's already 4 laps down. And he's not like off the pace at all. I mean, it's a G2G truck. He's running about as fast as he can go. And it's like the weekend just kept getting worse. I think he got another speeding penalty. And then, of course, he kind of caused the big moment of the race on lap 65, or he had completed 65 laps. He was like 12, 17 laps down or something by this point. A crash that we don't usually see at Charlotte, but we've seen at Charlotte also. Their pit wall is very far in. And thankfully, he just missed the garage opening by about a pit stall. And Armani goes sliding into pit road and hits the inside wall. One of a very scary crash. Kind of gives Casey Kane Pocono vibes from 2015, if you guys remember that crash. Not sure why Charlotte hasn't fixed that. I guess if you put the wall too far out, though, the risk of a serious crash actually intensifies. So I don't think moving the pit wall would actually help that situation. I feel like it would make it even more dangerous, especially with the way that they could come off that corner and seriously hit the wall. Glad Armani was okay, but unfortunately the consequences of that crash, G2G has now junked 2 trucks in the previous 2 weeks. Now, I don't believe either of these trucks are totaled based off of the damage. They're going to need a lot of work, but I don't believe they're totaled. And I don't think they have another truck ready. And spoiler alert, they have withdrawn from this weekend's truck race at Gateway. They will not be there because they just don't have a truck ready, which really sucks because Memphis, Villarreal, I'm sorry if I butchered his name. He did amazing for the team at Martinsville, and I was quite curious to see what he could do at Gateway in that truck. So that kind of sucks to see them withdraw, but that was kind of a spoiler. Other than that, those were the only 2 trucks that failed to qualify. Justin Carroll was on and off pit road multiple times. He would finish the race 12 laps down. They kind of struggled. I don't think that truck's really made for a mile and a half. They've been slow on both races. It was kind of a battle all week for some backmarkers. Youngs had a really rough race. Spencer Boyd, well, that's about what Spencer Boyd can do every week, one slow. Matt Mills just had a rough race, wasn't his best showing. No, he didn't really have any bad luck, just wasn't the best showing for him. And then we come to Chris Wright. For the longtime viewers of the show, have been very critical on Chris Wright. And he did it to himself again. He literally came up into the 15 truck, turned himself into the wall, and literally proceeded to blame the 16 truck of Tyler Ankrum when the 16 truck of Tyler Ankrum did nothing wrong. The 02 wrecked himself into the 16 truck, proceeded to blame the 16 truck. I think even the Young's trucks were mad at each other on the radio, or if that was last week's race. I don't know. There's been a lot of tension and turmoil at Young's Motorsports lately, and I just keep saying, you got to get rid of Chris Wright. And, spoiler alert again, they have parted ways. The 02 team have parted ways with Chris Wright, and all I have to say is good. Good. Chris Wright is a very nice human being. I've met him in the garage before. He might not want to meet me now, but let's face it, the guy was terrible. When he wasn't even crashing, he wasn't running any good. Chris Wright crashed every single week. I mean, the amount of body parts that Young's probably had to purchase for this damn 02 truck, unbelievable and almost to a point of unacceptable. I mean, Chris, again, when he's not running well, when he's not crashing, he's not running well. And then when he is running well, he crashes. It's like, pick a dang line and stick with it. If you're in a lower tier truck, run like a lower tier truck. Don't overdrive the truck and don't crash the truck. But he crashes so much. He crashed so much of Nice's inventory. He crashed so much of Young's inventory. He crashed that 68 car in the Xfinity Series last year. This man crashes in anything he gets in. I'm sorry, but at that stage, pay driver or not, get out of the sport if all you're going to do is be a weekly caution. And this is coming from a guy who loves to support lower tier teams. But god dang, this guy just ain't doing it. And I'm glad that Young's Motorsports has parted ways with him. Get Caden Honeycutt in that 02 truck, and let's start seeing some good runs for once. It's embarrassing what Chris Wright has done in that 02 truck. And that's just facts. He can call me a hater, but it's spitting facts, dude. He's wrecked almost every single week this year. And whether he doesn't junk the truck is damaged to the point where I got to replace the nose, the bumper, and do a hell of a lot of body work on the sides. So I think this is a great move by Young's Motorsports to part ways with this guy. Ugh, sorry, just had to get that out of my system. Anyway, up front, very challenging race for the lead. We have multiple leaders. Very odd top 10 showings. I mean, Tricon was up there. We didn't really expect to see that. And one Tricon truck that I'm just so happy, and you guys saw me, for the people who following me Twitter that night, Dean Thompson. I have said on all these shows, I feel so bad for the guy. It's not his fault what has happened to him this season. It's just bad luck. He ran in the top 6 the entire race. Without a doubt, the best showing of Dean Thompson I've ever seen. And I know this is NASCAR Backmarker Battles, but this is just kind of a sentimental post. That it is so great to see this guy. We finally got to see what he is made of. He can go. He can do this. We know Thompson is capable of doing this. I knew he was because in his ARCA days, he was good. I knew he could do this. Nice, it wasn't a good fit. He was driving a crappy truck. Here, he's got the equipment. He's got the chance. And he showed that he can do this. Dean Thompson earned that third place finish, and I could not be happier for him. So shout out to Dean Thompson. Congratulations. Ben Rhodes would end up winning in a really good finish. My one main gripe for the truck series, still too aero dependent in my opinion. Matt DiBenedetto gets a top 10 finish in 8th, so 2 straight top 10s for Rackley War. Bailey Curry for Nice gets 13th. I will say, though, KBM, are we starting to see the fall of KBM? Both Kyle Busch Motorsports trucks outside the top 15. That is really sad and frankly embarrassing for that organization. Are we seeing the fall of Kyle Busch Motorsports? I noticed that throughout the truck race, and that's really sad to say. But like Kevin Harvick Incorporated, like Brad Keselowski Racing, they might fall. They fell. And Kyle Busch Motorsports could easily fall too at this stage if they're running that bad. For some other backmarkers, Colby Howard 20th. Not the best finish for CR7, but just the fact that they had a clean race makes me happy. They've torn up a lot of trucks, so just to see the 9 get a clean race was good. Brett Holmes, he had a clean race in 21st. Tyler Hill, I believe this was his first start at Charlotte. Just glad he finished the race in one piece. Mason Maggio, 25th. Ryan Vargas, 26th. Josh Riom, this was the same truck that they ran Darlington with. It actually still had the Ken Block wrap on it, just with a different number font. So shout out to them for still running the Ken Block truck. He was 29th. And like we said, 30th, 31st, and 32nd for Young's. And Haley Deegan, once again, took herself out of a good finish, finishing 33rd. Overall, I thought the truck race was very good. The back markers, we had some strong back marker finishes in the truck series, but again, just feel like maybe Ilmore's spec engines. You guys have heard my opinions on spec engines. Definitely not my favorite thing about the truck series. I feel like spec engines are only hurting the series. But we also have a very different looking entry list for Gateway. We'll get to that a little bit later in the preview portion of our show. But yeah, overall for the truck series, the back markers had some good runs. It was great to see DiBenedetto get another top 10. Great to see Bailey Curry get to drive. He's a full-time crew member for Nice, so it's good to see whenever he gets the chance to drive. And even Lawless Allen, I'll give Lawless some credit. Kind of stayed clean throughout the race and got 17th. Still think Lawless deserves better than Nice. Hopefully does go to a different team next year. And yeah, for Chris Wright, yeah, like I said, I'm just glad he's out of there. Get someone in that truck who can do something. Put Caden in that truck. Put him in that truck for the rest of the year. He can get it done. So That was the truck race. Now we move on to the Xfinity race, the 2-day show Xfinity race. It felt like, or like what, 3 days, 4 days? I don't know how long this race lasted. The Xfinity race, the Outscore Uniforms 300. We actually had DNQs for this race. We had 40 cars for 38 spots. I had picked on this show a week ago that my DNQ picks would actually be the 08 of Natalie Decker and the 53 of CJ McLaughlin. I did get one of those right. Unfortunately, my friends over at NBM suffered yet another DNQ. I was listening to them on the radio during practice, and Timmy just kept saying the car was too loose. And I think one of the bigger problems is about these 20-minute practice sessions that I have is it's just simply not enough time. Even NASCAR, even if they added 10 more minutes and made it a 30-minute practice session, that would help so much, in my opinion. Because when you have a car that is extremely too loose at the start, you go out there, you make a couple runs, but you say, oh, it's too loose, bring her back in. You've already wasted 5 minutes. So trying to make those adjustments, get back out there for those 1 or 2 lap runs, it's just not enough time. You need that 30 minutes. Sometimes I would even say 50 minutes. I really hope NASCAR adjusts the practice times. I know they're not going to do that, but it's needed. They need to adjust these practice times. Because in general, the 66 car, they ran, I think, the fewest practice laps of any car. They only got like 6 laps, I think, out there in the practice. So even then, Timmy just didn't really have a chance to get the car figured out very well. CHK, shout out to Andy Hillenberg. For people who might not know, Andy Hillenberg helped the 74 out. I believe they took the 74 to Andy's shop, maybe put on a dyno plate or something. So shout out to Andy Hillenberg for helping out the 74 team. And they came with speed. The 74 car was high enough in practice to make the show. And in qualifying, the 74 CHK, that's 2 years in a row that Mike Harmon has made the Charlotte race. So Mike Harmon definitely knows how to set up a car for Charlotte. So shout out to CHK for getting to make their 3rd start of the year. But unfortunately for Timmy Hill and MBM, I thought they were a guaranteed lock. But even watching the car in qualifying, it was simply too loose. That car was too loose. He threw it into the corner. I'll give Timmy this. He threw that thing into the corner. And it didn't stick. It did not stick in turn 1 and 2, and it didn't stick in turns 3 and 4. Not Timmy's fault. Just you could see the car, the rear was wiggling, and it was not a good lap. It was not a good lap. Timmy, even listening to the radio when he was told the lap time, he thought it was a good lap time, but then when he was told how fast the 74 went, he just went oof, and yeah, that pretty much spelled the end right there. I think they only beat one car. Ironically, they beat the 53 of CJ McLaughlin. I mean, everyone beats him. But that was the only car they beat on track. So, unfortunate. Another DNQ for MBM this year. I believe this is their seventh DNQ for MBM this season. And this is the 2nd career DNQ for Emerling Gase Motorsports. The 53 car misses its first race. The 35 car missed Coda. The 53 missed this race. So the 2nd DNQ for Emerling Gase, and now each one of their cars has 1 DNQ this season. So not really sad to see CJ go home when you're that slow every single week. Frankly, you don't deserve to be in the show, in my opinion. I got nothing against CJ McLaughlin. He doesn't crash. I mean, he's not like Chris Wright where he crashes all the time. CJ's just slow. I got nothing against him. He's just slow. At least he doesn't crash all the time. He's just slow. So MBM and Emerling Gase were the 2 cars to go home. So, but at least I had, CHK. I'm glad they made the show. They deserved it. And I'll even give a shout out to Natalie Decker for all the people who, said, oh, she might not make the race. She actually ended up making the show on speed. Yeah, there were a couple of cars that didn't actually go from practice to qualifying, but it was kind of funny. The 08 of Decker actually made the race on speed. She didn't have to take a provisional at all, which I found kind of funny. Now, I was not actually at home when this race started. I was at work, so I missed the entire first stage, so I can't tell you anything that happened there. But really, nothing did happen. All the cars were still on the track. Nothing really changed. Ty Gibbs won the first stage, blah, blah, blah. The same thing. Nothing really changed. So I was actually quite happy to see the race get moved tonight. That way I could see the whole thing. And it was kind of paint by the numbers stuff. Everyone was racing each other. Respect to the whole field. We know that the Xfinity Series races each other very, very aggressively. But I'll give a shout out to the Xfinity Series field here. Everybody raced each other very, very cleanly. On the restarts, throughout the race, everybody was clean. Nobody was racing like an idiot. Nobody was wrecking each other. And it was almost like we just want to get this race over with type of vibe too. Like, let's not wreck each other. Let's just get this race over with so we can load up so we can go to Portland. That's the feel I was getting from everybody on track, if that makes sense to you guys. Yeah, throughout the race, we didn't really have any cars go to the garage. We didn't really have any crashes. We had a couple of on-track incidents, but they were nothing serious. The only real caution for the race was Brett Moffitt getting into the wall, which sucks because he's a fellow Iowa boy. But he still finished the race. The only car that failed to finish the race was Blaine Perkins. And, I kind of said it a couple times. I'm glad he was okay after his Talladega crash because it was a very scary crash. But, man, I tell you, Blaine just hasn't shown really much, if anything, this year. And his starts for SS Greenlight, and then they parted ways, and his starts for Our Motorsports this year, Blaine Perkins just has not shown speed at all. And I don't know what it is. We know that our car is easily capable of top 20 finishes, but yet there's the 02 car running 34th at best with Blaine behind the wheel. And I don't really understand it. They got miles better equipment than CHK does, and there's Dawson Cram running out there running 0.2 a lap faster than him. So, again, it's not a dig on Blaine Perkins. It's just what's going on here, man. You're in a really good car. Your car is well prepped. You got a decent motor in there, and you're running 35th behind, CHK and JD Motorsports, who you have a better car than them, and they're outrunning you. I don't know what's going on there. But they had an engine failure. Parker Kligerman did go to the garage. They came back out, but they didn't gain any positions. CHK, Cram, they were doing pretty well. They ran out of fuel late in the race, couldn't get the car refired. Dawson had actually lost power steering with about 40 laps to go, and the hard steering made it hard to steer, of course, and he hit the wall pretty good off of turn 4. Like, the whole right side will probably need replaced on his 74 machine, but they nursed it home. Unfortunately, they were really kind of the last car running, still in 36th. So any kind of a good run that they had is kind of wiped away. Still glad for CHK, though. I mean, I said it on the podcast many times at this point. It's not about owner points. It's just about doing the best they can. And realistically, if they hadn't ran out of fuel, they probably would have finished not much better, maybe 33rd, 34th. But either way, just glad they made the show and glad they ran the whole distance. For all the people who give them crap about the car, the car breaking apart, oh, it's going to make 20 laps and then break. The car didn't break at all. They lost power steering, but it's not like that took them out of the race. So glad CHK was actually able to run the whole distance. We had a great old school fuel mileage finish. Justin Allgaier won over John Hunter Nemechek. Love it. I love fuel mileage finishes. We don't see that enough. I did make a comment during the race that, we don't see a lot of backmarkers sneaking top 20s and top 15s. And I was really happy to see a lot of people in the sport respond to that tweet. And I guess in reality, you look at the Xfinity Series field, even from 2020, and you look at the Xfinity Series field now, we really have seen a huge influx of top tier $1 million+ organizations expanding and coming into the sport. And their R&D engines are just, like I said, they're just better. Case Collenbach, shout out to him. He works for JD Motorsports, was kind enough to comment. You just don't see it anymore because all these high-profile teams are running leased motors, R&D engines that are just better than theirs. I mean, he flat out admitted they're just better than JD's motors. That's why you see teams like JD Motorsports. The cars are not bad. The motor's just not as good. And that's why you see them running in the 30s instead of the 20s. It's not a dig at his team. It's just, like I said, they're just saying that's how it is. That's how it is. That's why we see Alpha Prime. They used to run top 20 almost every week, and they're running. They're not running bad, but they're running in the mid-20s again. SS Greenlight, they can barely crack the top 25 most weeks. And DGM can almost barely crack the top 25 most weeks. Very rarely they'll squeak out a top 20 finish. But yeah, I feel like Least Motors have definitely changed the game. The Xfinity Series is changing. We definitely have more high-profile teams than we did before, that's for sure. But we had an old-school fuel mileage finish. It did give us some good finishes. I did get some flack for not mentioning Carson Hocevar in the 77 on my underdog finish list. First off, I do want to say is that 77 is basically a Junior Motorsports entry. If you look at photos of the car being prepped, it's in Junior Motorsports. There's a lot of Junior Motorsports parts. There's an A-plus motor in that car. I don't care if Carson's in his second career start. He's not an underdog. That's an A-tier car. I'm not going to put an A-tier car in my underdogs list. I'd expect him to run 8th. I mean, that's the one thing I said. He better run 8th. If he finished any worse than 15th in that 77 car, that's considered bad, in my opinion. That's the way I look at it. That 77 is A-tier. So if he did any worse than 15th, that'd be a bad finish. So the fact that he ran 8th is a good thing. He should be running that good in that car. And yeah, Parker Retzlaff and Jeb Burton, they were in Least Motors for this race, so it's not shocking they ran as good as they did, even if they were also on fuel mileage. Kyle Sieg. Kyle Sieg has been low-key racking off some pretty good finishes lately for Sieg in the 28 car. I thought the move to 3 full-time cars would hurt RSS racing, but relatively it really hasn't in some ways, as much as I thought it would. But the 11 got 20. The 28 got 11th. The 38 got 17th. The 92 of Josh Williams got 18th. Jeremy Clements, 51, got 19th. Kyle Weatherman got 20th. So both DGM cars in the top 20. So they managed to scalp a good top 20 finish for both teams. And Jeffrey Earnhardt gets a very solid 21st place finish. Raja was down in 25th. Stefan, he struggled all day. He went a lap down early, which pretty much killed any chance of a good run. Recovered at 26th. Ryan Ellis, 27th. Brennan Poole down in 30th. Patrick Emmerling, 31st. Anthony Alfredo was running top 25, but he had a tire go down, so he had to pit early. Finished 32nd. Greg Gaulding. I almost said Greg Gaulding. Garrett Smithley, 33rd. Natalie Decker, 34th. Shout out. I'll give her some shout out anyway. For everyone, she didn't crash, and she didn't run slow. I mean, she was at sometimes the slowest car on the track, but it's not like she was 2 seconds off the pace. So I'll give her that at least. It's not like she was batch slow and was in the way. She did her job, and I'll give her that at least. She didn't crash like everyone predicted. I predicted she would crash before lap 50. I know that's kind of mean to say, but I think we all kind of predicted. I figured she was going to crash. So the fact that she made it to the whole race, I'll give her that. She made it to the end of the race in one piece, kept the car clean. So I'll give her a shout out for that. And then, of course, the 74, 36th, and the 02, 37th. The big point standings coming out of this race, because Truck Series, they don't do the weekly bonuses, but Xfinity Series does. The everlasting top 30 10K bonus. The 08 car was close, but due to their poor finish, they have been knocked out of the top 30 10K bonus. With their top 20 finish, the 91 is in. I don't know if this is the first time this season that the 91 is in the top 30 10K bonus, but they are in. So, and that's big, because we're going to Portland next week, and this is a long haul for these Xfinity teams. And the purse is not the best over there in Portland. It's a long, long haul. So for teams like DGM getting both cars in that top 30 10K bonus, for Alpha Prime, who have 2 cars in that top 30 10K bonus, that extra 20 grand for both of those organizations, that goes a long way. It really, really goes a long way. And for teams like JD, for teams like SS Greenlight and Emmerling Gase, who are fielding 2 full-time cars, but are not getting that purse money, it definitely hurts them. But they're not going to give up, that's for sure. I got a lot of friends who work for all 3 of those organizations, and they bust their tails every week. By virtue of 36th, the 74 teams still only have -7 points because I believe they had a penalty. So they're still at -7 for people who are wondering. They're officially – so we haven't even started a race yet, and I'm still ahead of the 74 in points. Sorry there, I'm just a tad under the weather. MBM obviously failed to qualify. The lowest full-time car now in owner points, though, it's kind of sad. The 07 has actually passed the 4 in owner points. So while the 4 of Garrett Smithley did make the show, unfortunately for that team, now the car was motor. Shout out again to Case Collenbach, who filled me in on this information. The 4 was struggling the whole race. And I've been watching Garrett's videos lately, and it's kind of been the same thing that he's kind of talked about, just lack of power. And this race, I said the motor was skipping or missing. It was not up to full song, and it showed. I'm like, Garrett, something about Garrett. He's not running as good as he usually does. This is not him. And unfortunately for the Ford team now, they are the lowest of the cars that have attempted. Well, I guess the 66 still is because they've been at every race. The 74 is skipping this one, so they're now officially out. But, yeah, and the 44 for Alpha Prime, that car I would say is too far gone from the top 30 10K bonus. The cars that are still mathematically in line for the top 30 10K bonus is 33rd and up. Right now, the 91 holds it in 30th at 135 points, and 33rd is the 35 for Emmerling Gase Motorsports, and they're only 10 points behind. But the 53, the 44, and the 07, the 4 are all over 30 points behind. And honestly, that's just for how close those teams run with each other every week. That's just, in my opinion, that's too big of a gap to close in on. So unfortunately, I feel like for the teams 53, 44, 07, and 4, they just got to accept the fact that they're going to be outside the top 30, and they got to work with what they got. Whereas the 35, 08, and 6 still have a good shot at challenging for it. But yeah, and that, like I said, that's big as they're coming into this weekend. And again, spoiler alert, there is some news in the Xfinity garage area. It looks like that the 08, SS Greenlight Racing and Greg Gaulding have parted ways. Sadly, SS Greenlight Racing just hasn't felt the same since their 2019 season, in my personal opinion. And this season in general has been quite a struggle. The 07 has gone through a mix of drivers, and the 08 will now looks like it'll go through another mix of drivers with Greg Gaulding departing the team. Spoiler alert, he's going to drive in the Cup race at Gateway. And speaking of Cup, now we move on to the Big Daddy, the biggest Cup race of the year in literal terms of biggest, the Coca-Cola 600, or as I like to call it, the World 600. I still think that they should call it Coca-Cola Presents the World 600. We obviously had the 36 chartered cars, no DNQs. We did have an unchartered car for this race, the 84 of Jimmy Johnson. I did say before the race, before the show on last week's show, how Jimmy Johnson would do was my biggest question. Would Jimmy Johnson struggle? He's not adapted to the next gens very well. He really hasn't had a lot of seat time. He crashed out in the Daytona 500. He crashed out on lap 1 of COTA, even though that wasn't his fault. And, practice and qualifying got completely washed out. I predicted he wouldn't run better than 25th because we've seen Legacy Motor Club cars run pretty bad. Without practice and qualifying, obviously he was going to have to start shotgun on the field with no points due to the metric system. And I will say he did a lot better than I thought he would in the beginning. Some of the other oddball entries we also had, I'll say before we get more into the race. BJ McLeod returned to the 78. JJ Yeley was put back in the 15, and Todd Gilliland was moved into the 51. Zane Smith was in the 38. That's why Todd was in the 51 this week. I felt for Todd. Unfortunately, they lost a cylinder early in the race. So if you're wondering why, like me, why the fifth. Dang, I don't know if you guys heard that. We got a thunderstorm outside. That scared the crap out of me. But the 51 actually lost a cylinder very early in the race. So poor Todd Gilliland was pretty much just running wide open the entire way around. But yeah, Johnson, he had a rough day. Legacy Motor Club had a rough day. I mean, God, it's so sad to see this where this team's at. Chevrolet is not giving them jack for equipment. Jimmy spun out a couple times, had to go to the garage. All 3 Legacy Motor Club cars went to the garage within 5 laps of each other, which is just comical with all due respect. Competition caution out for rain. I was at work at the time. I got home about lap 100, so I missed the first stage. Nothing important outside of Jimmy happened. And as I finally get settled, all 3 Legacy Motor Club cars, all 3 of them are literally in the garage. And I'm like, what happened? So apparently the 42 and the 43 ran over the same piece of debris, destroying their radiators. And Jimmy Johnson went to the garage for a different type of mechanical problem. And they all literally came back out. And then Jimmy crashes right into his teammate, which ends Noah Gragson's day. Oh God, how worse can it get? Jimmy literally takes out his full-time teammate from another finish. Poor Noah had to wait all that time just to get back in the car and literally run 15 laps. Both Jimmy and Noah ran 15 laps after they got back out on track. All that time just to give it out. I mean, at this point, I'm starting to just feel sorry for Noah Gragson, and I don't really like Noah Gragson that much. I'll be honest with you guys. I'm not the biggest Noah Gragson fan. But, man, he's at the point where I'm starting to just feel sorry for him with how bad he's been doing this year. It's so bad. I mean, Eric Jones, you can see Eric Jones, a natural talent. He is trying his best to get everything he can out of that 43 car, and he still can't muster up good runs. You know? And Jimmy Johnson, credit where credit is due. He was running at one point like 21st. But he just didn't have any laps in this next-gen car, and he wrecked himself. Very rarely do you see Jimmy Johnson wreck himself, but that's exactly what happened. And now, the funny statistic of the year, Jimmy Johnson came into this year with only 1 last-place finish. And just 3 starts this year, he's added that total up to 3. 2 last-place finishes this season, and that's not something I don't think anybody predicted we would see out of Jimmy Johnson. I'm really shocked he didn't run the Indy 500 again. I thought for sure Jimmy Johnson was going to run the Indy 500. That shocked me when it was announced that he would run the 600 and not the Indy 500. Overall, the race was phenomenal. This car cannot run well on short tracks, but goddamn, can it put on a hell of a race on a 1.5-mile track. Great racing all around, multiple leaders, multiple comers and goers. We had a couple of pass in the grasses. I love the fact that we have artificial turf. Artificial turf should be at every single racetrack so we can avoid splitter damage. I love it. We did have some more backmarker crashes. BJ McLeod spun out throughout the race. Cut one time throughout the race. It really kind of hurt his car. He was kind of limping to the flag after that. Ty Dillon in the 77 car just didn't really show much speed at all throughout the whole day. The car got a little faster throughout the day, but it was bat slow in the beginning. Michael McDowell had a top 20 finish going, but in the late got crashed, but finished 4 laps down. The 51 of Todd Gilliland, like I said, he was just kind of biding his time. He was so slow. It wasn't his fault. Just down a cylinder, the car could only go so fast. Unfortunately, Brad Keselowski got into him. You guys saw me post it. I thought they had forced him out of his car because they gave up on trying to help him back. But no, his steering box was broken. So sorry, I got that wrong. I thought they had forced him out of the car, but no, Todd's steering box was just simply broken. So bad night for the 51, which sucks because this was an opportunity night for the 51 to get ahead of the 42 of Legacy Motor Club in the top 33 charter battle. So yeah, the race went on. We had our several accidents throughout the backstretch. As you expected this race to just be absolute chaos. And the one thing I was noticing throughout this race is, man, JJ Yeley is back on the lead lap. He's continuing to stay on the lead lap and is actually running ahead of some really competitive cars. And I was listening to JJ's radio, and they're basically just telling him the best thing they could. Stay smart here. We're going to wait to the last run, and then we're really going to go for it. And that's what we kept seeing. Crash after crash after crash. Wasn't really wiping out many cars. In general, we only had, 7 DNFs, which for this race is about average for the Coca-Cola 600, about 7 DNFs with how long the race can be and how, troubling sometimes these on-track incidents can be. Obviously, the Denny Hamlin and Chase Elliott crash, I'll save comment for that crash. Just glad Chase got suspended. That's all I'll say about it. Yeah, we had Kyle Larson crash. Did not expect that. We had Austin Cindric crash. Did not expect that. I mean, it's weird. In some of these kinds of races, you will see those oddball crashes that you didn't expect. But yeah, Ryan Blaney won handedly. We'll skip ahead to that finish. Ryan Blaney won. Shout out to him. Great to see a body armor car go back to victory lane. Some great underdog finishes. Like I said, in that last run, listening to JJ's radio and how smart they were playing it, his crew chief encouraging him to go past cars. Just an amazing run for him. And some other great underdogs. JTG Doherty Racing has just been on fire this year. Winning the Daytona 500 has really given that team more confidence, more funding as well to get better equipment. Top 10 finish for them. Great. I love Ricky Stenhouse Jr. I love this team. Great seeing the 47 run very well. Zane Smith, man, he led some laps, stayed out. It worked out for him. Top 10 finish. Great run for Zane Smith. I don't like the fact that he might be replacing Todd Gilliland, but you know what? I feel like he's going to do just fine. Great run for Zane Smith. JJ Yeley, 16th man on raw pace and a Rick Ware car on the lead lap. The very first lead lap finish for Rick Ware Racing in the Coke 600. Gotta love it. You can call me a Rick Ware Racing mark, but man, you cannot deny that this team has gotten better. Rick Ware, since its debut season in the Cup Series, has gotten better. Yeah, you can say this next-gen car has maybe leveled the playing field, but you cannot deny that Rick Ware has stepped up its program. JJ Yeley has gotten 3 top 20s for Rick Ware Racing this season. The last time JJ Yeley even got 3 top 20s was 2007, driving for Gibbs. I've said multiple times on the show, JJ Yeley deserved better. But everyone will point to his one incident with Mark Martin and say, screw him. Okay, accidents happen. Was it a dumb mistake? Yes. Was that JJ's fault 100%? Yes. But you know what? It happens. Move on from it. So, JJ Yeley finished 16th. Corey LaJoie, 17th. Great run for him, too. Surprising bad runs. Both Trackhouse cars outside of the top 20. That was shocking, too. Christopher Bell wasn't really the same after he spun out earlier. Like I said, Ty Dillon down in 27th. Michael McDowell, 28th. BJ McLeod, last car running, 29th. Todd Gilliland down in 33rd. And Jimmy Johnson down in 37th. Cup Series standings for this after Charlotte, the top 33 charter battle, man, it continues to heat up. The 15 charter is not the one that's in danger. The 51 charter is. Still curious on what Rick Ware might be doing next year. Are they going to cut down to 1 car? Are they going to try to stick to 2 cars? Right now, the charter battle is really close, man. The 15 of Rick Ware, by virtue of their 16th place finish, rockets ahead of the 42 of Legacy Motor Club. And right now, Rick Ware Racing has a 18-point gap over the charter line. And more importantly, the 42 and the 51 are only 6 points separated. You want to know how bad it's gotten for the 42 this season? They are only 6 points away from losing their charter, depending on how bad Gateway goes this weekend. Spire closed in on the 51 due to the 51's crash. They are now only 13 points behind the 51. So Spire, ever so slowly, has been creeping up on the Rick Ware cars. And BJ McLeod's team, they're just too far behind. The 78 will finish in the bottom 3 this year again, and will unfortunately go into the danger zone in 2024. But yeah, definitely for the 77, the 51, and the 42, and the 15, those will be 4 cars to watch throughout the rest of this year. It's going to be fun to see how these guys race each other for the rest of the year. Now, obviously, the change for Legacy Motor Club to Toyota next year will probably help the team, but I'll say this. Finishing as low in points as they might be doing is still not a good look. It's not a good look for really selling to sponsors and other stuff too. Richard Childress' 3 car is 31st. I mean, the 41 for Stuart Haas is 29th. Legacy Motor Club, both cars outside the top 25. Colleague, 16, is 26th. Both Front Row Motorsports cars right now are still in the top 25 bonus. I mean, just love to see Front Row Motorsports running so well. That's all I got to say. So, yeah, great racing overall. All 3 races delivered. Charlotte was fun. Can never deny that. Charlotte's fun. Great racing. Underdogs reign supreme. Some great underdog finishes. But like always, the underdogs struggled as well. So now we transfer over to our preview show portion of the show. where we have the Cup Series and Truck Series at Gateway. I will be in Gateway this weekend helping out Hill Motorsports. So follow along Twitter. I'll be on the 56 truck with Timmy Hill driving and the Units truck. Love the Units truck. So that'll be fun. Yeah, I guess that's true. Racing Wrestling Fan 36. I forgot the 3-car had a penalty. Thanks for reminding me about that. I forgot about that. But yeah, we had the and then Xfinity Series in Portland. Now, I don't mind the Portland racetrack, but why would you schedule a race that is so far away for these teams where financially it's not as successful at all? We have Barber Motorsports Park, Virginia International Raceway, Road Atlanta. I'm not saying that Portland International Raceway is a bad track, but it is so far away for these teams. Is it even worth it? I don't think it's personally worth it. For me, why are we going to Road Atlanta? Road Atlanta is awesome. It's a great facility. It's a beautiful track. It'd be perfect for the Xfinity Series. Barber Motorsports Park, Virginia International Raceway. So many great road courses on the East Coast that we could be going to that we're not going to. But instead, let's go all the way to Portland, Oregon. I don't understand it. I don't understand that part of it, personally. That the Xfinity Series is going all the way out to Portland, Oregon. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Why can't we just go to Road Atlanta? Especially with the new Atlanta being garbage. Let's just go to Road Atlanta. You know, drop the Xfinity race from Atlanta and let's go to Road Atlanta. That'd be a way better race. Yeah, I agree. Portland would make sense as part of the West Coast swing. I actually agree with that. That makes sense then. But don't put Portland in such a random point in the year. I don't like that. I love the track, but I just don't like what's all the way. It's such a long haul for these poor teams, especially at a point where travel costs are at their most expensive. But we'll start off with the Truck Series entry list. 36 trucks. Again, no 46 truck. We do have a couple of new entries. Jesse Love will be making his Truck Series debut in the 1. The 02 truck will, again, have a new driver because Chris Wright will be looking for somewhere else. God forbid the team who hires him. Hopefully it's not G2G, although I could see that. Norm Benning, yes, the ultimate underdog. Norm Benning will make his second start of the 2023 season. He is locked into the show, so he will be making his second start of 2023. Great to see Norm make the show. Hopefully I see him in the garage. I'll get my fire suit back. That's a long story. But yeah, Norm will make the show. Matt Mills is back in the 20 again. Chris Hacker and the 30 team are back again. Mason Maggio's in the 33. Steven Malazzi in the 34. So great to see the 34 truck back. The 22 of AM Racing truck not entered. So that's kind of weird to see that truck not entered for this race. Bailey Curry is once again entered in the 41. Jack Woods back in the 51 again. Timmy Hill, like I said, back in the 56. Connor Jones in the 66 is back again. Hopefully he doesn't wreck half the field again. And Clay Greenfield, a new team, GK Racing. Now, it was reported after Daytona that him and Bruce Cook Racing had split. And this is not one of those fake teams. This is not one of those fake teams that you've seen floating around on Twitter. This is a real organization. And it's great to see Clay Greenfield still going. You know, losing Rackley War money really hurt him. And I'm just glad to see him still going. Now, everybody's going to make the show, so no DNQs. And that's probably why Norm and Clay are running this race. It's a great start to the season, and they know they can show up, not have to worry about overdoing it in qualifying. But yeah, no DNQs. It's going to be a lot of fun. Like I said, Gateway's always been good to me. Last year wasn't very good, though. Unfortunately, we had Tyler's crash on the last lap. So hopefully this year will go just as good on Timmy's side. Can't wait to see all the guys again. I'll be wearing my Pit Vipers again. So if you guys saw my Pit Viper pictures from Kansas, look forward to that again. I never couldn't afford a pair of Pit Viper sunglasses, but glad to gotten one from those guys. That was fun. So it'll be a fun weekend on the truck side, that's for sure. Xfinity Series at Portland. One of the funnier names, the Pacific Office Automation 147. Funny name. 38 cars, not shocking here. Nobody would make that kind of trip all the way out to Portland for a DNQ. That'd be so dumb. Exactly. You're right. I don't know why the Xfinity Series can't just go to Gateway 2. I mean, they raced there so many times before. And they would put on a great show there, too. But we only got 38 cars. Important to note, CHK and Mike Harmon, that team, they are skipping the next 2 races. They will not be at Portland, and they will not be at Sonoma. I think that is the best move possible for that team. Don't risk DNQing. Don't risk going home. Just save your time for the ovals, or at least the ovals that are on the East Coast. That's a little bit easier of a travel cost and all that fun stuff. Because right now, let's face it, if Mike Harmon made the trip out to Portland with 39 cars, they would go home. There's no way they would make the show. And with a projected entry list of about 40 to 41 for Sonoma, they wouldn't make the show there either. So smart move by Mike Harmon, or CHK as you want to call him, to skip the next 2 races. Very smart move by this team. I definitely think that's the right call. So that leaves us with just 38 cars. Some of the oddball entries for this race, not many road ringers, as you might think. Preston Pardis will be in the 08, again, because Greg Gaulding and the team have parted ways. So Greg Gaulding will no longer be in the 08. Preston Pardis is in the 08. This is not Preston's own car that he ran at COTA. This is a full SS Greenlight car. Rodney Sandstorm. Now, that's a cool story. Rodney Sandstorm, a.k.a. Jordan Taylor, will be making his NASCAR Xfinity Series debut. That's going to be a fun car to watch for sure. Myatt Snyder's back in the 19 for his couple of races for Joe Gibbs. Parker Chase is back in the 35 for Emerling Gase Motorsports. Leland Honeyman is back in the 43, or is in the 43 this weekend for Tommy Joe Martins. This is not one of Ryan Ellis's races. Dylan Lupton. That a name you guys haven't heard in a while? Dylan Lupton. Yes, that Dylan Lupton. He is back. And a random start for the 44 car of Alpha Prime at Portland. Cool to see Dylan back. Wouldn't really consider him a road ringer, but he's also not bad on the road courses either. And it looks like that they've moved Jeffrey Earnhardt to the 45 car, which honestly is the best idea. Jeffrey, not the best qualifier. And frankly, he's the guy with the full-time sponsor, so you got to make sure he makes the show. Definitely the right move by Alpha Prime to put him in the 45 now full-time, because that way the 45 is locked into every race. They don't have to worry about him missing races, and make sure the 44 has the best chance to make the race every week. So smart idea by that team. Patrick Emmerling will drive the 53. Going to be a long race for them. They got no sponsorship at that car, and Patrick's not much of a road racer, so this is going to be a fun weekend for him. Carl Long in the 66. Matt Jaskell was rumored to drive the 66. He said he needed some extra sponsor dollars. Curious on who is going to go. Curious on who is going to go at the 66. They are locked into the show, so they will be there. I'm just curious on who's going to drive the car. Just glad Uncle Carl will get to make the show. They've been just having an ungodly bad luck season. Alfredo, of course, in the 78. Alex LeBay, unshockingly, returns for a road course race in the 91, and that's pretty much the oddball entries for this race. Again, nobody goes home, rightfully so. There's no reason for anyone to DNQ a race that's 45-plus hours away from the shop. So that'll be fun. That'll be fun for them. For those guys, they don't have to worry about qualifying setups and all that. Just get a nice, clean lap in. But yeah, for the top 30 10K bonus, those teams are definitely going to be battling hard. So that'll be fun. That'll be fun for sure. And then the Cup Series, the big boys. The one of the shorter Cup races of the season, only 300 miles, 240 laps. Really shocked that they don't run the short track package. I didn't feel like last year's Cup race at Gateway was very good, personally. Too much downforce. Too much downforce for a small track like this doesn't work, in my opinion. We do have some new entries for this race. Chase Elliott has been suspended. Good call. I'm not happy about that at all. Not Chase Elliott's suspension. I'm not happy about that crash. I have crapped on Denny Hamlin so much on the show, and rightfully so. But that crash was way too similar to Blaze Alexander's crash. It was in a carbon copy of Blaze Alexander's crash, and it was really scary to see. I very scary flashbacks to Blaze Alexander's crash. The exact type of turn and the exact type of impact. Only Kerry Earnhardt's was by accident. Chase Elliott's was clearly intentional. And it's haunting knowing that that's the exact same crash that took Blaze Alexander and took Tony Roper from us. And that smug Chase Elliott interview, man, it just makes me lose respect for him. You don't do that. You see Hamlin's onboard camera. Thank God for safer barriers. If that was not a safer barrier right there, I don't like Denny Hamlin, but I don't want to see the guy get hurt. It's like in racing, we don't like some drivers, but you never want to see him get hurt. Like you don't like a baseball player, you never want to see him get hurt. You don't like a football player, fine, but you don't want to see him get hurt. We hate seeing athletes get hurt because they put on entertainment for us. I just hated that. And that's coming from a guy who doesn't like Denny Hamlin one bit. But I don't want to see him get hurt. He doesn't deserve to get hurt. And completely unacceptable by Chase Elliott. Just horrible flashbacks of Tony Roper and Blaze Alexander. Rightfully is taken out of the car for this race. Rightfully so. So I'm not mad about that at all. And an opportunity of a lifetime for Corey LaJoie. Underdog Corey LaJoie will get his big break driving the 9 for Hendrick Motorsports. That leaves the 7 open for Carson Hocevar. Ironically, they're replacing a guy in the 7 who was right hooked and wrecked numerous people in the Truck Series, even as far back as just a couple races ago. So I don't understand that at all. Carson Hocevar is a wrecking machine, but God forbid he has 2 awesome Xfinity races and people just seem to forget all that. This guy has literally managed to turn the fan base against him because of his dumb on-track actions over the past year. Carson Hocevar had one of the biggest fan bases in the Truck Series, and through his stupid on-track antics, turned a whole fan base against him. So, I don't really understand that at all. He's not ready at all for a Cup car. I mean, God forbid, 2 Xfinity starts or 3 Xfinity starts and a couple of Truck Series seasons, and he's ready for Cup? No, he's not. No, he's not. Will he probably still be faster than the 77? Yes. Now you ask yourself, well, with the Xfinity guys, who could have replaced the 7? Grant Enfinger? Matt DiBenedetto? Especially DiBenedetto. I mean, Enfinger and DiBenedetto have been in the sport for a long time. DiBenedetto has driven Cup cars for years. He's got a Chevrolet affiliation. DiBenedetto, in my opinion, would have been a way better choice. So I don't understand that at all. But Carson Hocevar better not wreck someone. Yeah, Enfinger or DiBenedetto would have been the best choice for that 7 car. Certainly not Carson Hocevar. And does he deserve it? No. He does not deserve that 7 car one bit, and I don't care how you try to explain it to me. Carson Hocevar does not deserve a Cup ride, not even close. Yes, even Matt Crafton. The only reason why I didn't say Matt Crafton is because Thor Sport is a Ford team. That's why. Otherwise, yeah, put Matt Crafton in that Cup car. But no. Carson Hocevar in that 7, it doesn't make any sense to me. So, it is what it is there. Great. Happy for Corey LaJoie. Don't really care for Carson Hocevar one bit. Greg Gaulding. Greg Gaulding's in the 15. I mentioned before he had parted ways with Bobby Daughter's team. SS Greenlight Racing just isn't what it used to be, sadly. And Panini America, the cool trading card company, will be back on the 15, and it'll be Greg Gaulding's first Cup Series start quite a while. A couple years, definitely. Yeah, Greg Gaulding. He would have been a good choice for the 7, too. I agree. But yeah, Gaulding will be in the 15. I think they'll do okay. This Greg Gaulding usually does pretty good in the Cup cars. Just like JJ Yeley, he really gets the most out of these Cup cars. So I think Rick Ware might be in line for a great weekend. JJ has simply been put in the 51 again. But I think Rick Ware Racing's definitely could be looking at a great weekend overall in terms of finishes, because they got 2 really strong drivers in their cars. BJ is still in the 78. And that's really kind of it. Just the same standard 36 guys. Todd Gilliland is back in the 38 again this week, so no Zane Smith. And yeah, but yeah, the big story of Chase Elliott getting suspended, good. Like I said, after what he did there and the scary crashes we've seen in the past, like I said, that's not cool, man. Not cool at all. Because it just makes me happy for safer barriers. because Blaze Alexander is still missed to this day. Tony Roper is still missed to this day. And regardless of your opinion on Denny Hamlin, nobody deserves to get hurt in this sport, no matter how much you might hate a driver. I remember when Kyle Busch got injured at Daytona in 2015, I didn't like him at all. But when I heard his leg was broken, I felt so bad for him because he's an athlete. You love to boo him. And when he's not there, it's not the same. It's not the same when he wasn't there for all that time. So glad Denny's okay. Glad he'll be in the car this weekend. I still don't like him, but I'm glad he's still racing at least. And yeah, get that 9 guy out of there for a while. I just don't like Chase Elliott at all anymore. I really don't. He's bland. He's like WWE almost. He's like a guy that Vince McMahon's trying to push to the moon, but he can't cut a promo to save his life. He's like one of those wrestlers that's awesome in the ring, but he can't cut a promo to save his life. That's Chase Elliott. He's a good race car driver, but he can't cut an interview. He can't cut a promo to save his life. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys. I'm a wrestling fan too, if you guys didn't just pick that up. I am a wrestling fan. But yeah, it should be a fun weekend overall at Gateway in Portland. Unfortunately, due to the truck race, I will miss the entire Portland Xfinity race, but rest assured, I have it recorded, so I will be watching it. Even though I'll probably just kind of skid through it because I'll be looking at live race updates anyway. But it'll be a fun race. Last year's race was fun. You had Jesse Iwuji taking out Ty Gibbs, which was pure gold. You had the rain race, guys on slicks, guys on wets. You had Carl Long getting a double top 20, which is unheard of at this point. Yes, William Dawson in the chat. Chase Elliott has turned heel. Yes, this was a heel turn. And just like every heel in wrestling, they have their legions of fans that are annoying. Chase Elliott fans certainly showed their true colors today. Oh boy. I'm glad so many people in the chat understood my wrestling pun there. That makes me feel so happy. Thank you guys for understanding my wrestling pun there. But yeah, guys, follow along on Twitter with me for some live race updates. I'm going to try to get some pictures of the 6 truck and the 95 truck for you guys, as well as pictures from the 56 team over the weekend. 56 trucks near the weekend. Cheer for Timmy Hill. Cheer for the Units truck. That'll be a fun race for you guys. I'll get to see the owner of Units again. It's always cool seeing him. He's a fun guy in the garage area. It's just going to be a fun weekend overall. We will be doing the ARCA Racing podcast, by the way. We'll still be doing that on Thursday, but we will be doing that live from my hotel room. Yes, I'll be traveling to St. Louis on Thursday. So the ARCA Racing podcast will be spaced out there for a second. The ARC Racing podcast will be live Thursday, 7 p.m., but I'll be doing it from my hotel room. So if you guys see a different background than what you're normally used to, I'm in my hotel room. Wow, we have been here for over an hour. I'm still talking, and you guys are still here. So cool. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That was Charlotte review, the Gateway Portland preview. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Again, you guys make this podcast so much fun. Thank you guys for being so interactive in the chat. You guys, like I said, you guys are the best. You guys make this show fun. You guys make the show worth it, making the channel worth it. I used to do this show in front of no viewers, and now we got plenty of live viewers to interact with, and it's just so rewarding. And I just can't say thank you enough. So till Thursday, have a great rest of your Tuesday night, and we will catch you all next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. Turn on that bell for all notifications so you never miss a podcast and so you don't miss Thursday's podcast. And yep, take care, guys. Colby Evans, Start and Park Car, signing off. So long, guys.